Hey, where are the white women at?
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Seeker. So I've been essentially holding off, right, and making certain comments, I said comics, about certain things, right? But I think some of this stuff needs to be addressed, right? Because, like, I find it very ironic that in the last year we've been spending time, fighting off and making fun of and trying to essentially, how do you say, let me put some gameplay in the background so you guys don't get bored of my shit. So that we basically fought people like and argued with and tried to debunk and etc. and call out people like Mike Hollow, people like Sikander, people like Sonic Fox, etc, right? These leftist types, wokies that love to point the finger at people but never seem to ever want to essentially point the bullshit back to their own friends or themselves when they do pretty stupid shit, which is the whole thing of, rules for thee but not for me. They're always willing to essentially create standards and morals, that you should follow according to them, but they never follow it themselves. I'll give you an example. Let's say someone decides to slap you, and by slap it doesn't have to be physical, right? It could be disrespect, etc, whatnot. Let's say they slapped you, right? And then you decide, because you got slapped in your face, that you're gonna punch them, or however you want to, react to that scenario. And then they get mad at you for the way that you react and tell you that you're the one who's supposed to react however the hell they want. Which, if you think about it, makes no sense whatsoever. If you lay your hand on someone, you don't get to tell people how they can react, because you're giving them or putting moral standards on them that you yourself are not following. And then, like the people I've named, then you love to point fingers and gaslight people, which I find very ironic, right? So the reason why I'm saying stuff like this, for example, is because I think as much as we, or rather our side, the anti-woke SJW side, likes to call out these leftist wokey types that ruin our video games and etc., our side tends to ignore that, we essentially like to act the very same way. I'll name a few examples without naming people, right? So, for example, let's say you and a buddy are talking, right? And they come out of nowhere and say something that sounds kind of foolish, right? I'll give you an example. A good example would be like saying that judging people is somehow playing God. Not that I want to get into the whole religious thing, but let's just use that for example. So apparently, because they believe that somehow judging others, which is not even against the Bible, right, is somehow playing God, and you want to correct them and tell them no, because if we're going to use the Bible tells you essentially that you know, you can judge as long as it's not hypocritical or judgmentally, because everything that we do requires you to judge. What shoes to wear is a judgment. What clothes you decide to wear is a judgment. Where you decide to go is a judgment. How you decide to start your day is judgment, etc., 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 right? Which is ironic. So you try to essentially use facts to tell this person in a friendly way. You're challenging their worldview and you're telling them why it's wrong. And instead of, just discussing something, then they start acting like leftist types and then start telling you that you just want to argue, that you just can't help yourself. Then they start giving you attitude. Oh, I already said what I said. You always think you're right, and all this other leftist fucking behavior. And the irony is that we have fought these types of behaviors only to do what? As one person put it, which he's a hypocrite himself, but he's not wrong in the sense, is that, we got rid of so many people who were toxic to the point that the people that I've been around have been starting to act the same way as them. Right? Because for as much as, and I won't mention this person's name, he's a friend of mine, he's a cool dude. As he said, I lost my train of thought, that, for people who love, it's very wary sometimes, because a lot of people love to say woke this, woke that, woke the other thing, and yet they end up becoming the very person that they claim to hate. They gaslight you, they disrespect you, they're passive aggressive, they dismiss your point of view. They want you to hear their side and their opinion, but the moment you disagree with them and you decide to challenge their worldview because it's contradictory or flawed, somehow you become the enemy in their eyes. And then they'll do anything to gaslight you, disrespect you, treat you like you're a fucking child that doesn't know what they're talking about. And then when you give them the same energy back and you disrespect them, or you do worse, somehow they want to place rules and morals that they don't place on themselves. Rules for thee, but not for me. Right? Which is crazy. Then, in other scenarios, you're talking about things and you decide, to send them some pictures of stuff that has to do with the topic, and then out of nowhere they just snap on you, because apparently you're posting too much on said channel, even though people don't talk in that channel, right? To have people engage with either the mods and etc. that you're posting, or start a conversation, or to even show the person pictures that have to do with said conversation, right? Like if you're talking about mods, for example, and instead of telling you, hey, look, people are a little bothered by the fact, and by people like 3 or 4 of them out of 200 and something, are bothered by the simple fact that you're posting a lot of pictures in a nice way, in a respectful way. They end up being douchebags and trying to disrespect you, and then when you tell them if they don't like it, they can go fuck themselves because of the attitude and nasty behavior they gave you, then again, they want to essentially put standards and rules on you that they want you to follow, and then essentially they don't want to follow it themselves. It's like getting slapped in the face, and when you punch the person, suddenly it doesn't become about what they did. It becomes about how they made you feel. It's like, for example, having a girlfriend who is toxic as shit, right? You call her out on her bad behavior, and essentially what she does is she gaslights you, disrespects you, acts a little crazy, and then she admits that she's wrong, but she expects you to apologize because she claims that she doesn't feel like she has to apologize, but since she's apologizing, you need to apologize because she demands it. And if you don't let go, of the conversation, if you don't let it go when she demands you to let it go, after she so-called begrudgingly admitted that, she was wrong, and you still want to hear her to hear your perspective because people want you to hear theirs, but they don't want you to express yours, then they threaten you. They'd be like, oh, if you don't let it go, then me and you are not going to be friends anymore. I mean, boyfriend and girlfriend anymore. It's the same thing with friendships too. And it's very funny and ironic that then they say that you're the evil one, you're the one with the ego, and that you're the one insulting them, all the while they get to insult you, and etc. So basically leftist behavior. I've been in enough debates to know how a leftist acts, which I find very ironic. So we're gonna call out all these people and shit on them just to essentially give back the same behavior when people challenge our views, when we're rude to people for no reason, and etc. And it's very funny too, because these very same people, especially in your friend group or outside of it, are just as bad as the people they bitch about. For example, how some certain people, see people disrespecting you in public, and when you go off on them for the disrespect and etc., suddenly they want to come at you and say, oh, well, you need to relax and stop being so angry over nothing. What? It's like, you don't even know what the situation is about, so why don't you just go mind your fucking business? Like, seriously. Then they have the balls, which is the ironic part. Then they have the balls to further gaslight you, to essentially tell you that you're behaving like someone we had to kick out of the server who was acting fucking crazy for every little thing, which is very insane. And again, this is the way, whether people want to admit it or not, that our side tends to act as well while calling out the other side. So what the hell is the point of making fun of leftists and, trying to debate them and, expose them and etc., and then we're going to go ahead and start acting the same fucking way? What's the difference? What's the point of bitching then if you're going to act the very same way that the people you claim to dislike, that ruin your video games and etc., are acting, when you're just going to be giving off the same behavior? So it's the pot calling the kettle black. How the fuck can you live with yourself with that kind of fucking mentality? We talk about how fragile and sensitive or oversensitive these people fucking are, and then we're gonna behave the same stupid ass fucking way. Make that make sense. Make that make sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. And then, then they try to like ruin your reputation by going to others and saying, yeah, this guy's acting crazy, he's always angry, and people are afraid to speak in the server or whatever because of his behavior and stuff. And it's like, are you people like slow? Are you retarded? If you're gonna disrespect people and pretend that you're smarter than them, right, and insult their intelligence belittle them and their perspective and etc., how are you gonna go and get angry when they do the same thing to you? Or worse. Because then, I'm a very good person, right? I'm always kind when I'm debating people, and I always like to hear their perspective, and then I like to say my perspective. But one thing that pisses me off, and I won't tolerate, is when people want you to hear their perspective, and then when you're trying to put your perspective, people come off with the bullshit of, oh, you just think you know everything. Oh, why are you still talking? Let it go. Oh, I don't like the way you said this. Oh, like, so you spend there, 20 minutes interrupting me, right? I stay quiet, don't say anything. You belittle my intelligence, you belittle, etc. You disrespect me and whatnot. And then you expect me to what? Just take it? And I always love that argument, right? Because people are always saying that you have to be the bigger person, that somehow that being a good person means that everyone can walk all over fucking you, right? Well, I'm gonna rephrase that. Can fucking walk all over you, and you're just supposed to take it because you're such a good person, right? So this gaslighting, delusional mindset, and yet we're sitting here, and yet they have the balls to sit here and make fun of leftists and etc. Right? And yet they're gaslighting you, they're disrespecting you, and suddenly when you give them that same energy back, somehow you're the bad guy, you're the villain. It's not about what they did to piss you off and get you to that point. It's about what you did to them to hurt their feelings for disrespecting you. Isn't that some ironic fucking shit? Huh? Isn't that fucking delusional? And we sit here and shit on what? Woke activists? Why? If we're gonna act the same stupid way, there's no point. You might as well join their side. It's not any different. It's not any different. It's the same shit. Then it's funny because then these people don't even have the balls to say anything to your face, which is the funny part, right? They'll go talk amongst themselves. The 5-6 people will go talk among themselves, talking shit behind your back, and then when you go into their DMs and you message them and you tell them you wish that they would, say it to your face rather than behind your back, and you essentially put them in their place, suddenly it's you who's trying to start an argument with them when you're calling them out for their coward, bitch-made behavior. Imagine that. It's like people who backstab you, right? Like, can you imagine, right? Someone backstabs you and throws personal things that you told them behind closed doors, and they try to use that against you, right? They try to use that against you in public. Even if it was private, it'd still be the same issue. Whether it was they said it in public, or they said it in they either said it in public or in private. It's the same shit. So they say all these things, personal things you told them, to disrespect you because they feel disrespected at the fact that you're disrespecting them for disrespecting you. And then they throw all these, things that you told them privately, since you're supposed to be friends and etc. Then you do the same thing to them, and then suddenly you're the asshole, right? Then they tell you that they don't have to apologize, or they don't feel like they have to apologize for saying things, even though they were being dickheads first. And then they get mad at you like an ex-girlfriend who can't understand what no means, because you decided that you may have forgiven them, for what they did, but you're not willing to, how do you say, be friends with them anymore. It's like when you're you have a girlfriend and she cheats on you, right? And then, you forgive her for that, but that doesn't mean just because you forgive her that you're gonna date her again. I know some guys are fucking stupid and they will do it. So because you won't date her again or be her friend or have her anywhere in your life ever again, suddenly you're the problem, because you're supposed to apparently forgive and you're supposed to keep them around so that they realize that they messed up and now they won't do that anymore. So you expect, think about it, use your brain. So you expect that if you stab someone in the back, right, that suddenly they're going to forgive you and they're not going to be looking over their shoulder the entire time. That's not how that works. When you break trust, loyalty with someone, and you decide to break that trust will never be recovered ever. You're delusional if you think that will ever, change. It won't. It will always be in the back of that person's mind. They can never trust you again, whether that's friendship, whether that's dating, etc. But like a gaslighting ex-girlfriend, they try to make you feel like shit because you don't want to deal with them anymore, because you don't want to put up with that behavior from someone who's supposed to be a trusted friend. Crazy, huh? Having standards. Crazy. But yet they'll sit here and talk shit about, the leftist, wokest assholes and etc. Then you got then you got people who get mad at you, right? For example, let's look at Mortal Kombat 1, right? We're always talking about how shitty that game is. And you explain why the game is so shit and etc. And people will literally agree with you, right? To your face. But then later on you find out, like I did, because I ended up joining a voice call with two people talking. And, the first thing you hear is them talking about that. And then they go, yeah, the people complaining about Mortal Kombat are just lacking skills. It's a skill issue. And, they're over here making fun of and disrespecting anyone who essentially doesn't agree with Mortal Kombat 1, which I find very ironic. And then they get mad at you and say that you're just spying on them or whatever. When it's a public voice chat. And then they get mad at you for telling everyone else their stupid ass behavior because you expose them. So suddenly you're the problem again and they gaslight you, because how dare you walk into a public voice chat and then start telling people the shit that they're saying because they're too pussy to say it to people's faces, clearly. And somehow, again, you become the bad guy. Rules for thee, but not for me. It's the same people that tell you, oh yeah, I don't agree with you because, you need to know frame data, this, that, and the fourth. Using characters like Liu Kang who are broken as shit, if you know how to do the broken shit with the broken cameo. Spamming it and etc., thinking that they have some kind of fucking skill when they don't. Telling you that you're wrong for the very points that you complain about in Mortal Kombat 1, but yet 5 minutes later when they're playing themselves, then you start hearing them snapping and losing their shit, agreeing with the very things you complained about that they said that you were wrong about. Make that make sense. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. A lot of these people are just delusional, as stupid, as retarded, and mentally ill as the very people they complain about on the other side. Especially, they're basically a 1-to-1 version of the very activists that they complain about. And that's not to say the entire side is like that. Don't get me wrong. But we definitely do have people on our side, the anti-woke crowd, who have the same temperament and behaviors as the very people they complain about, which is the woke types in the gaming sphere or whatever else you want to talk about. They're your friends, which is ironic because the person said this. So when you agree with them, this is the irony of this. So when you agree with them, right? They're your friends. They love you. They'll send you gifts and etc. when you agree with them. The moment that you decide to disagree with them, though, they become your worst enemy. So much so that they'll go around and start tarnishing your reputation and name, making you out to be the bad guy and the crazy one, gaslighting you with their little group of retards, pretending that you're the bad guy here, when you're simply just matching energy and you're not letting the disrespect and etc. slide. Crazy, isn't it? Crazy shit. Some crazy fucking stuff, if you ask me. It's crazy. It's crazy, and I think that we need to start calling out our very own people, because our very own people are gonna say all these things about the woke side and all this stuff, but yet their behavior is no different, and then it makes us all look bad. They can't take accountability for their actions. When they do it begrudgingly, and then they still try to gaslight you as you're the problem instead of them. Imagine that. Crazy, huh? Excuse me. Very crazy stuff. Very fucking crazy stuff. And it's funny because I remember one time I was having this like back and forth with someone. It wasn't even disrespectful. We were talking about Sonic Fox, and they were like, "Oh, I got to give respect because he's actually a good player." I was like, let's be real though. Let's be real, because there's also been some dickheads in my comment section as well, that apparently I can't talk about Sonic Fox and his shitty behavior because I can't beat him at pushing buttons on a video game. Imagine that. You can't have an opinion on some loser furry who can't stop talking about his politics and sexuality and go by stupid pronouns that don't exist, because you can't beat him at a fighting game. Is that really the standard? You can't have a discussion about someone or make fun of their stupidity because you can't beat them in a fighting game? Let's be real. Sonic Fox is not as good as people pretend he is. First of all, the man has to take pills in order before, playing fighting games, which should definitely be illegal in a fighting tournament, to be honest, so he can concentrate because he has ADHD or whatever bullshit he has, right? Then, according to certain pro players, and one of them is one of the people I'm calling out here, who was a pro player as well, but acts like a leftist, have stated that, not only does NetherRealm listen to whatever Sonic Fox says, which is evident because we saw that when he started bitching about Cyrax being nerfed, and suddenly before Evo or whatever the hell the stupid competition was called, suddenly Cyrax gets buffed. And because he was called out on it, guess what? He decided not to use his Rain Cyrax team, but decided to still go and use Johnny Cage, who is in terms broken because the rest of the cast is fucking trash. Which doesn't really cement his point at all. He stopped using one broken thing just to go to another broken thing, right? You know, apparently, according to some pro players too, that I won't name, some of them already been public, so it is what it is, have even stated how a lot of the pro scene, at least with Nether Realms, it's usually, you know, them fighting the same fucking people, because it's essentially, and these are their words, not mine, you know, rigged to be that way. You know what I mean? And like, think of it. The last time I watched a tournament with Sonic Fox in it, right, he was getting beat by Johnny Cage to an inch of his health. But out of nowhere, out of fucking nowhere, right, the guy decides to run away when all he had to do was a super kick, and the stupid damage itself, you know, would have, the chip damage itself would have just knocked Fox out of the game. But out of nowhere, the guy decides to start playing stupidly, and then Sonic gets the win. I'm sorry. That is not normal. And clearly tells me that there's something going on behind the scenes when shit like this happens. Especially with the way that that ended up being, there's no way that that's not rigged. But that's just my opinion. You know, with some things to back it up, but you know. So apparently, you know, the gaming scene, especially in NRS, seems to be a little geared towards Sonic Fox, especially when they have also admitted that they hire pro players to essentially give their inputs on their video games and etc. And then you have the fact that, you know, these people, you know, suck the nuts of NRS and etc. They get hired, you know, when he complains, you know, people change it. And yet, you know, he beats people mostly in NRS games, which aren't that great, by the way. Injustice 2 is shit. MK1 is shit. You know, a guy who just likes to grab characters that are broken and spam the same 3 moves. And yet you would like to argue that, you know, that's a skill issue. But when, you know, these moves do more damage and are kind of not balanced right and had bug issues and etc., you know, you would have to blame the, you know, the devs for having it there for sure. But it's also up to the player to know not to use these moves. Not to use these moves because, you know, how do you say, what's the word? And sorry for the background noise. You think they have some integrity. There we go. That's the right word. Integrity. But they don't. Because ultimately, you know, having integrity and showing people that you actually have some real skill, it's not a thing nowadays. Now you just have to do whatever it takes because the devs are too stupid to fix things or don't want to, so that they can supposedly pretend they have some kind of skill, which they don't. You know, I remember back in the day when you could grab any character, right? And if you had actual skill, you could beat anyone with any character. That's what skill was about. You could take the weakest character and beat the most broken asshole because you had skill. Nowadays, it's pick the meta, which means, you know, a broken character that carries you to whatever place in a fighting game. And if you don't believe me, look at the last tournament that we saw. Guess who all the characters were? Most of the characters in that lineup, in the top, I think, what was it? The top 10? Homelander, one Ermac, a noob Cybot, and Johnny Cages. That tells you a lot. That the top 10 pro players had to play Homelander, in order to get to top 10. So clearly their skills didn't get them to top 10. It was the character that carried them there. And that's evident. But, you know, if you call that out, you know, there'll be some dickheads that'll be like, oh, you're just jealous because you're not an Evo player. Da, 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 da. No one gives a fuck about that. People are just trying to play the game for fun. But apparently, you know, you can't say anything about these stupid ass people because somehow it's a grave sin, or because you can't beat them in Evo or whatever bullshit like logic they want to come up with. See, and my other points too for why he's not as good as people think he is because when he plays in other fighting games, yes, he might end up in the top 8 and whatnot, but he's not always winning the first spot, and all that matters is the first spot. That's all that matters. It's like racing. You're there to race to be number 1. You're not there to race to be number 3, number 2, or number 4. The only places that matter is number 1, and then you get number 2 and number 3 who gets awards for being, you know, the top 3. That's it. At this point, when you say, oh, the top 10 players, da 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 da, that's just a participation trophy. No one cares. If you're not the top 1, 2, and 3, no one cares. Well, I don't care. That doesn't scream. You're good enough to be in the top 10, but you're not good enough to be first. And in most games that you can win top 1, you know, number 1 spot is NRS games. Like, it's crazy. Then they also get, then the top player that can win at Evo and etc. gets beat by random people online. Isn't that some ironic shit? And then people can make the excuse of, oh, he's just not trying because, you know, da 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 da. No, you're supposed to be the top player. Try. So don't get me wrong. There's times where I don't try in matches, but I'm not the one bragging about being the best player ever or people kissing my ass because reasons. Which I find very fucking ironic. Like I said, he's not as good as people think he is. He's good at NetherRealm games, I guess. You know, especially when you put the other things I've mentioned into consideration, it doesn't seem that. Especially because, you know, he checks all the boxes. He's their spokesboy. They listen to him on his input about gaming, even though, you know, playing a video game doesn't automatically make you, you know, an expert in making games. This is the same guy that was crying because Noob Saibot got buffed and then wanted to jump on Skullgirls, and then I get called out in the comment section being told that somehow, you know, I can't say shit because I can't beat the guy, or the guy beat me before, or some shit. Like, I don't know. People are mentally delusional. Gaslighting doesn't really work on me. Whatever bullshit you can say to disrespect me, I promise you I can say it 10 times worse. And it's very funny to watch how butthurt these people get when you do put them in their place and essentially give them the same medicine they're giving, the same dose of poison that they're giving you. Funny, huh? But yeah, this video has been long enough anyway. But you know, to make a final point, we do have to call out the very people in our community as well, because the people in our community as well are no better than the people we bitch about and complain about and expose. And I'm not saying the entire community is like that. The majority of the community is fine, but there are people in our community that does make it look bad, that act exactly like the very leftists they bitch and moan about. But anyways, let me know what you think. This has been your boy Seeker with another one. And remember, my people, where the white women at? Anyways, let me know what you think. Comment, subscribe, like, whatever. And I'll see you next time. Later.